So 7 Up, Part 1. All right, in our action-oriented culture, we can often move into doing before we anchor ourselves in Source and in the divine wisdom, freedom, love, joy, peace, and abundance of the Source that lives within us. We can sometimes become so outer-driven that we really forget to first, be inward and upward directed. Does that sound familiar, or does it ring true for anyone? Where we just jump out of bed and just start doing without connecting? Because we have that list, don't we? We have a list of things that we want to check off. And I think this is going to be a good month to really check in and look at that. I love the words of Ernest Holmes, and this is from The Science of Mind. He says, "We are perfect beings within, and the within may become the without if we will carefully train ourselves to listen to the inner voice of truth." So this month, we're going to do some careful training on the idea of going in and up to the source of our being to listen to our inner voice of truth before moving out and into action. Today and next Sunday, we dig into this theme of 7 Up. And as I said, it's not the soft drink, but 7 ideas. We're going to do 3.5 today and 3.5 next week that will cause inner movement to support the outward expression of God's wisdom, freedom, love, joy, peace, and abundance in our lives. So today's 3.5 are look up, lift up, lighten up, and very briefly, we're going to touch on make it up. And then next week we'll do Make It Up Part 2, Kick It Up, Give It Up, and Start It Up. So let's begin with Look Up. The first of our 7 Ups is the idea of looking up. Looking up to the divine source of all that is, was, and ever will be. We are told in the scripture at Psalms, "I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help." And that's really a beautiful affirmation, isn't it? Isn't that just beautiful? Let's say it together. "I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help." Now, I want to be clear about something. I know that there is really nothing, there's no up to look to, right? That's just a figure of speech. There's really no up, down, around about God. So looking up is just symbolic. Just as I automatically, but symbolically, look up when I'm having that amazing moment of gratitude for something that's powerful and beautiful that's just happened in my life as Source is unfolding. So are we okay if I'm using the idea of symbolically looking up? Okay. Holmes writes in The Science of Mind, "One alone," and this is powerful, "one alone in consciousness with the infinite constitutes a complete majority." You don't have to get everybody out there to agree with you. One alone in consciousness with the infinite constitutes a complete majority. Knowing this in your thought, work in perfect peace and calm. You are the majority. You've just created that yourself. I think that is so powerful. Just think about it for a moment in a personal sense. Just you, just your little old self, right? When you consciously look up, another way of saying, when you consciously align with Spirit, align with God, you become the complete majority in your life for all that is needed. There's also a powerful statement from the sacred text of the Sikh religion. And this is, "Should anyone be victim of great anxiety, his body racked with maladies, beset with problems of home and family, with pleasure and pain alternating, wandering in all 4 directions without peace or rest, should he then contemplate the Supreme Being, peaceful shall his mind and body become." Isn't that beautiful how that just goes through? I'll read that again, okay? "Should anyone be victim of great anxiety, his body racked with maladies, beset with problems of home and family, with pleasure and pain alternating, wandering in all 4 directions without peace or rest, should he then contemplate the Supreme Being, peaceful shall his mind and body become." Jesus told us that we must become as children to enter the kingdom of heaven, meaning we must have an innocence and purity of thought in order to achieve peace and joy, etc. Here's an example of that, and I've shared this before, but some of you may not have heard it. There was a Sunday school teacher once that asked her group of children if they could quote the entire 23rd Psalm. A golden-haired 4.5-year-old girl was among those who raised their hands. A bit skeptical, the teacher asked if she could really quote the entire psalm. The little girl came to the front of the room, and she faced the class and made a perky little bow, and she said, "The Lord is my shepherd. That's all I want." Then she bowed again, and she went and sat down. So that may well be the greatest interpretation of the 23rd Psalm that I have ever heard. So remember the scripture, "Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all else will be given unto you." I think there are times when I have been so wrapped up in trying to accomplish something or finish something or get something, and I forget, I need to connect with Source, and then it all just flows. It's like little dominoes just get into order. So onward to lift up. The second of our 7 ups is lift up. And you may wonder how that's different from look up. And, well, I'm going to tell you it is. Lift up is different from look up. Look up is to consciously and specifically turn to and to recognize the Source. Lift up means to lift up your vibration so that you are in alignment with Source energy. In Ask and It Is Given, this is one of the books I have here by Esther and Jerry Hicks, they wrote about our emotional guidance scale, which aligns perfectly with the work of David Hawkins in the other book I have here, Power versus Force. They suggest that our emotions are indicators of our vibrational frequency, and our vibrational frequency is an indicator of the degree of alignment with our Source energy. And the emotions we're having at any given moment can clue us in to where we are in our alignment with Source energy. Hicks puts our emotions on a continuum just as Hawkins did, from low, most out of alignment, to highest, most in alignment. And the most out of alignment set of emotions, and these are no surprise here, when you're in fear, depression, despair, you're out of alignment, aren't you? You're just not connecting. And you move up the scale a little bit to anger, discouragement, and blame. And then you move up to disappointment, frustration, pessimism. And then you move up a little more to boredom, contentment, and then hopefulness. You see where we're going? And then you move up to optimism, enthusiasm, happiness, and then up to passion and joy and appreciation. And then you're in empowerment and love. So as I said, these align beautifully with David Hawkins' vibrational scale, which goes from shame and guilt at the very bottom to peace and joy and enlightenment at the top. The idea behind Lift Up is first to pay attention to where we are. We have to start right where we are, don't we? We can't say, you know what? I know I want to be here, so I'm just going to say I'm there. That doesn't work. We have to recognize where we are and embrace that and know that. So we have to pay attention to that. So let's say you get hit with some distressing news and you immediately want to rush out and fix the situation. I know I do. What if you first went within and checked where you were emotionally? And if you aren't in that place, that vibration of optimism and enthusiasm and eagerness and passion and joy or empowerment or love, then you choose at that moment to lift yourself up a notch or two before going out and taking action on it. Because I think sometimes we can make a situation worse if we just react without checking in to see where we're coming from. Are we coming from love? Or are we coming from fear? Are we coming from an area where we're not sure how to fix it, but we know we don't want it to continue? So we want to make sure we're coming from love. And in that elevating or lifting up, you're going to create a vibration more aligned with the source of all good, and the outcome is going to be very, very different. So how do we lift up our emotions? There's the million-dollar question, right? Well, here it is. Change your thinking, change your life, as Holmes said. By the thoughts we choose to think, we can actually stop the thoughts we do not want to think and choose to think something different. We can choose to think a different thought. We may not be able to jump directly from thoughts that create fear and depression and despair to those thoughts that create passion and joy, but we can jump perhaps to contentment and hope. They talk about just baby steps, just a little bit, and a much better place, will be in a much better place to affect the outcome that we desire. And then at any moment, by the thoughts that we think, we can lighten up. This is my favorite, I think, it's pretty much what it sounds like, to lighten up. Henry Ward Beecher once said, "A person without a sense of humor is like a wagon without springs, jolted by every pebble in the road." We can make a choice for how light we're going to take the moments of our life. We don't have to wait for humor or for the lightness or for the joy to come to us. We can create it. I've watched, my girls have gone through high school and college, and I watched the moment when the drama of things were happening and how much energy it took, and they decided they didn't want to be in that drama, and they decided they were going to focus on something lighter, something more fun. It takes a lot of energy to stay in drama, doesn't it? It takes a whole lot of energy. And then you decide, you know what, I want to have fun. I want to have fun. So I'm going to put my energy into creating fun. And that's what they've chosen to do, and I like to do that too, because we can create it. Meister Eckhart said, "Joy is the infallible sign of the presence of God." When you are in joy, you have the presence of God right there. The unmistakable evidence of God's presence is joy, which means it's a joy that isn't dependent or contained in the experiences of our lives. How many of us look to outward experiences to bring us joy? That's not where joy, the joy of spirit comes from. It comes from within. If you are constantly looking at conditions out there to tell you how you feel in here, you're going to be disappointed, because there's a lot of stuff going out there that we do not want to embody, because that's not the truth. Remember, our thoughts create what we see out there. So if we want to see something different out there, we have to start with our thoughts, and we have to create what we want to see out there. So remember, the joy begins within when we are connected to our source. So as we go through this experience we call life, there are wonderful opportunities to take it all lightly and to make light of it. And that doesn't mean that things aren't important. It just means that whatever we're going through, and I know a lot of us are going through different things in our lives right now, whatever it is we're going through, we can hold it lightly, and we can find some humor, perhaps, maybe not humor, but some joy, some light in that. We can do this because there is plenty of joy available, regardless of what we're going through, because there's plenty of God available right where you are, right here, right now. So, and finally, we're going to get to make it up, which means we get to give life meaning. We get to assign the meaning of what is important in our lives. We get to say what is and what something means. We can even rewrite our story. I'm sure you've heard the story of, or you've heard Edwene Gaines. Have you heard of Edwene Gaines? She's an amazing prosperity teacher. And she tells the story of a friend who had a business card, and on the business card it had her name, and then it had MSU after her name. And she was very impressed by the string of letters. And then she admitted to her friend that she didn't know what those letters stood for. So she said, what does MSU stand for? And you know what the reply was? Make stuff up. I like that. Make stuff up, MSU. We're going to discuss that idea a little bit more next week. And so, before moving into the world of action, we look up to God, the source of all good. We lift up our vibration by choosing the thoughts that will take us even just one rung on the ladder up in more alignment with Source. Just one. You don't have to reach for that top one, but just one. We lighten up by realizing that we can hold the things in our lives lightly and find joy in everything, because God is in everything. And we can make it up because we get to decide. We get to decide what is important in our lives and what means something to us. So let's end our time together with a wonderful story that illustrates these ideas. There was a young man who was exploring a cave near his home when the beam of his flashlight ignited a faint sparkle on the ground. He walked over to the spot and he picked up a fairly ordinary-looking rock. And as he brushed it off and studied it, and he was looking at it very closely, he realized that it was a raw diamond that had to be, 4 or 5, 6 carats. It was a big raw diamond. And he was not an expert, but he knew that it could be worth quite a lot of money. So he put it in his pocket and he explored the floor for some more jewels, and he didn't find any more. So he left the cave and he reached into his pocket and he found that it was empty. It was as if the diamond had just disappeared, like burned through his pocket and just was gone. He immediately went back into the cave and he retraced his steps, but to no avail. He went back the next day and the next day and the next day and the next day. He just kept going back looking for that. Soon he lost his job, and he had a job as a carpenter because he failed to show up for work. And as a result of searching for the diamond, he thought that it was okay to lose that job because he was going to make so much more money when he found this diamond, right? And he eventually lost his home, and then he ran out of money, and he couldn't pay the rent. And so he set up a tent near the cave so that he could search every day. And he became a hermit, and he gave up all of his relationships and his hobbies to focus on his obsessive quiet quest here. And years went by in the blink of an eye. And one day he realized that he was wasting his life searching for something that might not be as valuable as he had imagined. He decided that he would spend one more day searching, and if he did not find the diamond, he would give up and start a new life. So the next day he searched and searched on his hands and knees until he was stained with sooty blood. He worked for 18 hours knowing that this would be his last chance. Now, he really wanted to find this diamond as much to appease his guilt over wasting years of his life, right? So much of his life. And as really, he also wanted to find it to enjoy that elusive fortune that he had originally thought that he was going to find. Exhausted beyond measure, he fell on his back. He fell onto his back in just total despair. It hit him how ridiculous he must have looked lying there on the floor, dirty and exhausted, and completely without a life. He began to laugh, and his mind flooded with all of the precious things he realized that he'd missed. As he released his obsession for finding the diamond, he began to feel something he hadn't felt in a long time. And he was hopeful about his future. He started to look forward to contributing to the world again through his craft, to the joy of building those relationships, and to the love of friends. In that moment, he realized that he was so much more than what he had become, that he could rewrite his life from this moment forward. He felt grateful for the understanding and vowed to enjoy life for each moment from that day on. So in that we have the lift up, the lighten up, and the make it up. But where's the look up? Where was the look up in that story? Well, it comes in the PS, the postscript here. As he lay on his back laughing, feeling hopeful and realizing that he can make up his new life, he shined his flashlight on the ceiling of the cave, and for the first time, he looked up. And in looking up, he saw the ceiling dripping with raw diamonds. He sold the diamond mine, gave most of the money away to charity, married and had a family, and went back to carpentry and lived a comfortable and simple life until he died. He occasionally taught seminars on how to appreciate the magic of every moment. So this week, what I'd like you to do is look for opportunities to lift up, to lighten up, and to even make it up. See if you can't find the magic of every moment. And so it is.